Welcome to episode 6 of the We'll Bring the Popcorn Entertainment Podcast. I'm Brad, this is Josh, and somehow it's already February.
I know, we're 6 episodes in. It's crazy. It's been a lot of fun so far, but on today's episode, we're going to be previewing TV in 2024. So we talk a lot about movies, but this week is a big week for TV, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So do you want to just jump into it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, there's absolutely no football game going on this weekend to worry about. We just got regular TV shows to talk about.
Regular TV. I'm all for it.
So it was actually quite a bit of news that dropped this week from Disney. I think it was from D23 or something. They released a lot of information about their upcoming slate. So Moana 2 out of the blue. You know, my girls are excited for it. I showed them the little teaser trailer that came out, and they're like, oh, when does it come out? Well, it doesn't come out till November, and they were disappointed, but I know they're going to love to see them. When I tell them Moana 2 is coming out, my youngest was like, it's next week, right? No. But this was kind of surprised because I don't think anybody knew it was in the works. Apparently it started out as a Disney Plus series, and they decided to convert it into a movie. So they're actually in talks to get their two main stars back for the film because, you know, being a series, more than likely to get sound-alikes to do the voices. So now they're trying to get the stars. They did say Lin-Manuel Miranda will not be returning to do the songs, which is a little disappointing because, you know, the songs that he did for Moana are still stuck in everybody's head and all that. But it kind of makes sense because if it did start out as a series, who knows how much of this was already completed as a series before they converted it. So they might have, you know, already had all the music and everything they wanted set. Now they just need to get the voice actors they need back on board to get it going. Yeah,
I mean, Moana was one of those... I call it one of those films that got even more popular during like the pandemic when everybody was, you know, at home watching, you know, stuff all the time. With the parent friends that I had would constantly talk about what their kids were watching, like during, you know, shutdowns and people being at home constantly. And almost every parent I knew mentioned Moana above everything else, right? Moana was like one of those films that their kids would watch for, you know, hours on end or on repeat in some cases. And, you know, like you said, the songs are part of the charm. So not having Lin-Manuel Miranda, see, I'm butchering names.
He's the butcher.
I'm now the butcher today. But having him do the songs in the film, like that was a big part of the charm of the movie, right? So, I mean, you know, all of those songs, like you said, are stuck in your head, like You're Welcome, and you know, like
you got Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, singing in a movie,
right? It was great, and it's really exciting that they're coming out with another one of these. Hopefully, it's, you know, another good story. They tend to have done fairly better at some of their sequels, like over the last few years. I know, like Frozen 2 was a huge hit, you know, and different movies like that maybe back in the day when they got a sequel weren't necessarily as good, like straight to video type features that they were doing. But the fact that they feel confident enough to convert it from a TV series to a film now, I think it's a smarter move on their part because I could tell it's probably going to do gangbusters at the box office when it does come out. You know,
I know I'll be there with my girls the very first day that I can take them because they will be waiting to go.
Absolutely.
Past that, so Zootopia 2 is going to be coming in 2025, and Toy Story 5 and Frozen 3 are coming in 2026. And
so many sequels.
Just touch base on Toy Story 5 a little bit, because we kind of thought Toy Story 3 was going to be the last, and Toy Story 4 was going to be the last. Now we have 5. And I'm still on board with the internet's theory that when they're finally done doing these movies, and hopefully maybe that's in Toy Story 5, that the story revolves around Andy, grown up, married, and he's having a baby, and that the whole movie is about the toys ending up back in Andy's hands so that he can give it to his kid. Like, if you want an entire theater of grown-ups to cry, that's what you do.
Oh, it would get me for sure. But, you know, Toy Story is like, it's one of those multi-generational type films now. Like, we watched it as kids, and like you're watching it with your kids, and like it's one of those like multi-generational. It's been a property that's been around so long. Like, I don't know how I feel about 5. I know, like, each of the 4 films I've enjoyed, and they've been quality movies, but another one, like, okay, like, hopefully this is it for it. I don't, you know, as long as they tell good stories, I'm here for it, but it feels like part of it feels like a money grab for me, if I can speak a little freely about it, but it's like, you know, it's gonna make a ton of money if you slap that name on it. But like, I agree with your point though. I think ending the film series, having those toys come full circle story wise makes the most sense. But we'll see what kind of story they tell.
I just picture a box being carried over to Andy at a baby shower. He opens it up, and there's just Woody and Buzz and all the toys in there, and you just see the look on his face, and that's it. Right off into the sunset. We're done. Like, we don't know there's nothing that's been said about it. I think Tim Allen's talked about it, so we know at least he's coming back. You would figure Tom Hanks is coming back.
Sure.
But we really don't know anything else about that. But as you said, multi-generational now with how long this is spanned. It would be nice to kind of see it end in a great way that ties it all together and kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah, give everybody, some warm and fuzzies to wrap up a classic series, right? And then, you mentioned Zootopia too. Zootopia was a fun film that I really enjoyed. Everybody, has that sloth GIF saved in their phones of like, but
we do an entire episode as the sloth as a flash from Zootopia.
Doing another one of those, I guess, is fine. Like, I don't know what the story is going to be. Obviously, we don't have any details, even though it's coming next year. But you talk about that. You talk about Frozen 3. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. I saw maybe 20 minutes of Frozen 2. I saw the first Frozen. The first Frozen was fantastic, right? I hear Frozen 2 is pretty good as well. I don't know whether they could possibly... I can't really speak to a third one because I really don't know what happened at the end of the second one. I'm not going to pretend like I've watched it. But
yeah, I'm a girl dad.
Sure.
My thoughts would be that Anna and Kristoff have a baby, and the baby ends up having powers or something else, and that's how they deal with it. But there are no story ideas out there. That's what I would think they would probably go as a more family related, because family has been a heavy underlying layer of the Frozen series. It's crucial to both the films, so there's got to be something else family-wise. Do you keep going to the well of it just being about Anna and Elsa, or do you bring in, well, now there's a kid that they have to worry about? But I guess we'll find out, because 2 years away now from it, but should start seeing details sometime this year on it.
Sure.
Also coming in 2026, one that we're looking forward to and we've discussed before is the Mandalorian Grogu. It was announced that it's now not expected until 2026, which is a little disappointing because, of course, we were expecting Mandalorian Season 4, and we get the movie announced. And so if we don't get the movie until 2026, it'll be 3 years in between the last season of The Mandalorian and the movie.
It's a long time. It's a long wait. I don't have any concerns about it being popular or successful at the box office, but to kind of piggyback off that, have also been talks of, Daisy Ridley coming back to Star Wars as well, and the movie that she's going to do potentially coming out around the same time frame. So does that throw that schedule out of whack? It's like one thing that gets a little frustrating is the pushing off of some of these projects later and later and later, and it feels like we're just stuck here kind of waiting. I get you want to build some anticipation, but at what point is there too long of a gap to where people aren't it may not do as well as it could have had it come out sooner? Like, you play with that whole business dynamic versus creative dynamic, right? Because do you take the 3 years to make a better story that's more exciting and, keeps fan engagement up, or do you try to get that out a little sooner so it maintains some of that, some of that like buzz that it keeps having? Or like, I don't know, it's frustrating to see it like something like that's already long distances between seasons to get pushed out even further. You know what I mean?
You also have the unfortunate circumstances that we just lost Carl Weathers, who had a very large role within The Mandalorian. He played an important character to Dan and everything. So now they have to look at, it's not really based off, can never tell when someone's going to pass, but now you've got 3 years out that they also now have to figure out, do we just ignore that his character existed? Do we pay tribute and honor to him? Do they kill off the character? Like, what do they do with his character with this continuation? This also brings up, are we possibly going to get a season 4 of The Mandalorian? There's time for him, because if it's not 2026, you think it's got to film at the end of this year, film 2025 more than likely. You got 2024, you could film the next season, but we just don't know where that's going to go, because there are, more rumors that have come out that looks like it's more cementing that Pedro is going to be in the Fantastic Four movie. That's going to eat up a lot of his time. He's got The Last of Us, so is there time for him? they could stick to him just doing voices and not be taking the helmet off as much, but we got to look at that as well. Like, could they squeeze another season in, or is their plan just to stick with the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they can necessarily put it all on Pedro's shoulders at this point, because like you said, he's not there filming 99% of the show anyway, and it's just him doing the voice work for, you know, the Mandalorian, and they've, you know, avoided having him take his helmet off now for the last couple seasons. It seems like he's reaffirmed that, like, hey, I'm sticking to the old Mandalorian principles of not taking my helmet off ever. So there's ways they can get around shooting it. It's just, I don't know, man. It like I said, I'm frustrated with the fact that it takes so long to get it done. But at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna watch anyway. Oh, yeah. But it's just like, as a fan, like it sucks sometimes. You know, there's no better way to put it. It's like, you know, we love this show. We want to see more of it, but is it worth the wait? I don't know. What's it going to do if they wait another year and it's not as good, and then they start losing some interest and losing some goodwill? Because, like, Star Wars fans, I don't know if anybody knows this, are notoriously fickle about everything, and at least the diehards are, right? So I mean, it's one of those, like, I don't know. I'm not articulating it in the way that I'd like to, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, yeah. Like there's got to be a balance there.
Well, to bring in relation to that, it was just announced in May that Episode 1 is coming back to theaters for the 25th anniversary, which just makes me feel so old that it's been 25 years since the first one came back. And as you mentioned with the fans, like, those prequels were very polarizing. People loathed and hated them then. But now they've come around to where we've seen how Hayden Christensen has been treated since he came back on Ahsoka and the Kenobi series, Obi-Wan series, that he's feeling the love finally, 25 years. Well, I mean, he wasn't in Episode 1, but 25 years later, after that prequel series started, they're now starting to get their flowers, getting the love. Like, they have their issues, so does the original trilogy, and everything.
Do you think part of that is due to how much people absolutely hated the last two films that were made in this recent sequel trilogy, that it causes them to go back and look at those and be like,
the sequel trilogy is hated.
Maybe those weren't as bad as we thought. Because
now we love the originals.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's great. It's great. If you do like a side-by-side comparison, we love these films now. I don't know. It's, like I said, the whole tying into Star Wars being fickle and also feeling old, that, you know, Episode 1, Phantom Menace, is 25 years old now. Like, oh my God, like, that's just crazy to think about, because, you know, it came out when, not to age ourselves, but we were teenagers when the first one came out. So we have some of that tie into our youth and getting our version of a Star Wars trilogy for, you know, our generation and our youth. Like, it'll be cool. I'm definitely going to look to see it. I do still think that Phantom Menace is probably the weakest of those three films, but it's still got some very cool moments in it, and obviously, you know, one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever, Darth Maul, you know, is a big part of that film. So I'm excited to go check it out for sure.
And talking about another fan base that's kind of been a little mixed on what's been coming out lately is the Marvel fan base. Sure. So Bob Iger did touch base on that, saying they're gonna kind of scale back. They're gonna reduce the number of projects they're doing for the MCU, and they're going to try to concentrate on their core strongest properties, which doesn't exactly give us a whole lot, because the strongest properties up till now, you know, Iron Man, we're not going to be seeing Robert Downey Jr. coming back. Captain America, we're more than likely not seeing Chris Evans coming back. So what do they see currently as their strongest properties, and how are they going to move forward with those? Because we did get kind of a mixed bag with this latest phases. We enjoyed just about everything, but there was, you know, noticeably some step back from what we got with the Infinity Saga. Because overall, other than, you know, people didn't like Thor: The Dark World, there was a few missteps within the Infinity War saga, or the Infinity Stone saga and everything. Sure, that it overall was really solid. And this one was a lot more mixed. So it's curious to see how they kind of step back and what they go with, because we got Daredevil coming back, and then, you know, potentially continuing the Netflix series. We don't know exactly how much of the Netflix series we're going to get in Born Again, how much MCU we're going to get within Daredevil. We just had Echo, just had the Marvels. Kind of, we kind of don't know what Marvel. We still have Kang Dynasty. We have Secret Wars. We know a few projects are still coming up, but it's going to be curious to see how the MCU is shaped from here on out.
Yeah, and to your point, like I don't understand what he means when he says we're going back to our stronger properties. Because to your point, creatively, they've kind of just chopped off their strongest properties, right? Unless you're talking about like doing an all new Avengers or doing, like or doing something like you said, the Snap, or there's different ways you can get around it, but most of their stronger properties, they've creatively wrapped up those stories. It's like, Captain America had his send off. Iron Man had his epic send-off, Black Widow had hers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, it feels like, were kind of given like it was open-ended enough, but it felt like a proper ending for that franchise as well. It's like, what's left that you're talking about? Obviously, the Avengers, anytime you put an Avengers label on something, it's probably going to do big business. Are they going to build back up to putting a new Avengers team together? Obviously, there's 2 Avengers films on the horizon, but what are these strong properties that they're talking about? And I'm a little curious about that. Do they view Shang-Chi as a strong property? The film did amazing, but we've not seen him since the movie, which is absolutely insane because it feels like it was going to be a bigger part of it, but that's neither here nor there. Doctor Strange did well. Spider-Man, I know we're all anxiously waiting to see if a new deal with Tom Holland is struck for Spider-Man.
Yeah, because he's talked like he could be done with the character if it's not done right. There has been a lot of talk about Spider-Man 4 potentially looking for a director. They're looking at story points and stuff, but nothing is solidified about having Tom Holland back.
Sure.
So yeah, with that aspect, like, we've had She-Hulk that did mixed. We had Miss Marvel, which we had fun with, but the Marvels movie didn't do very well. So, would they consider Miss Marvel to be a strong new character, or Captain Marvel? Because she came in the end of, the Infinity War or the Infinity Saga. Do they feel that she's a strong, even after the kind of the performance and backlash that those movies have had? It's definitely interesting to see what they're going to believe their strong properties are.
I really do think they're going to throw a lot of their weight behind the Fantastic Four, I think. I think what they mean, maybe they mean strongest comic properties, because if that's the case, Fantastic Four is going to be like it, right?
And X-Men.
Yeah,
and
we
X-Men. We have X-Men coming. We haven't had a lot done yet with X-Men. It's 2026 or later before we see the first X-Men property from them. But yeah, maybe it's Fantastic Four, it's X-Men, it's Avengers.
Yeah,
that they go forward with.
And I think that might be the way they go, but we'll see, right? Since they've been pivoting a lot lately, so I don't know. It's gonna be one of those things to keep an eye on for sure. Like they're at they're kind of at a crux point now where it's like, do you lose that fan base completely at this point moving forward, or does it come roaring back with a strong showing with, how does Deadpool factor into it, all those kind of things.
And everything we're hearing, Deadpool 3. Hearing some people say this might be what jumpstarts the next evolution of the MCU and kicks off the rejuvenation of Marvel, because, we have some details on Deadpool 3. First trailer should be coming with a Super Bowl. We've heard it. We don't know for certain. But that could be something that reshapes how they do everything. We just don't know.
And hopefully we'll know about that by the time this episode comes out. The Super Bowl will have aired, the commercials have aired. We'll know if we got a trailer for that or not, which is pretty exciting, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. But kind of moving away from like the Disney aspect of things, one of the news stories we talked about last week was the Ryan Coogler Michael B Jordan film coming back together to make a new film. We got a little bit more information on it this week. It's looking to start shooting in April in New Orleans, so that's very exciting. It looks like it's going to be like a period thriller piece about like the undead and different aspects of that, but it's going to have like some strong anime influences. I know Michael B Jordan's been big about that. If you saw like the last Creed film, that was very heavily anime influenced. So it seems like it's going to be shot that kind of way similarly, I think, but that's pretty exciting. I know one of the cool things that came out that said, Michael B Jordan's going to be playing twins in that film, which, good God, dude, save some for the rest of us, would you? Like, good Lord. Like, one of you is enough. Do we need 2 of you? Jesus, give us a chance out here. But
it'll be fun to see. Like, they've both done some great films together between what they did with Black Panther, what they did with the Creed series and stuff. So it's going to be fun to see how they do that. And yeah, with him playing twins, like, we've seen some with the character playing his own twin that have gone badly.
Sure.
And we've seen some that have gone decently, but it's kind of always weird because you're acting off of someone else and then trying to react to your own self. So we'll see how they pull that off. Like Michael B. Jordan is a fantastic actor. He's a great guy. He's 100% muscle. And
I do love the way they shoot those type of twin type films when it's one actor playing both, because they do the awkward, like, we're going to show this angle and it's his face with what's obviously a body double, like staring back at him, and then they flip it the other way. And then it's funny how they shoot it, but I'm excited to see the film because it sounds like a cool premise that, you know, it's going to have my attention, obviously. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that when it comes out for sure.
Film we hope we get a chance to see is Coyote versus ACME. So this has been in such turbulence for, well, we really don't know. Like I think we mentioned before, we've had some directors and other people have seen the film come out saying that it's a quality, good film, but Warner Brothers has seemingly been set to just shelve it for the tax write-off. We heard that after the backlash, they started taking offers. They were asking, I think it took like 30-40 million to make the film, but they were asking about 80 million for it. And they had Amazon and a few others put bids on it, but they apparently shot them all down, wouldn't give them information, didn't allow them to counter anything else, just kind of shot it all down. So it's this really weird situation that they're just not wanting to put out this Looney Tunes film.
Yeah, no, and we talked about it in like previous episodes, giving an example of like the Halle Berry film that Netflix scrapped, but now you have this like another controversy from Warner Brothers. Like, why are these studios pumping so much money into the film, then trying to use them as tax write-off and never actually putting them out or never watching it, or there's some creative stuff going on? Like, I don't know. Now they're trying to distribute it at an absurdly high rate. I don't get it, man. I wish I understood more about how that part of the business works and how much more of that over the years is that a pattern of things that we've seen that just maybe wasn't as well publicly known, that like things get shot that don't come out. Like you hear about like lost episodes of something going into a vault, or like versions of it disappearing that nobody can see that was shot. But like, how prevalent has that been over the course of history? Because this is a lot of money that you're pouring into these things, and it's just never seeing the light of day. And thankfully, you know, the people that take part in making and producing and like all the editing team and people like that get paid for their time for their films. But it just feels like such money wasted to pour all that capital into a film to just kill it dead on sight.
Plus, how does this make the creatives feel? The directors, the actors, the writers, are they going to try to pitch something to Warner Brothers when they see how, you know, this would be the second film that they've shelved in a couple years? Are they going to want to try to, I mean, of course, money's going to talk in the end for some of them, but are they going to want to work with Warner Brothers? Are they going to want to bring their properties there? Because they could potentially go all in and have something filmed and then it never see the light of day.
Yeah, I've got some friends that do that kind of work, that do, you know, like visual effects and, you know, work on animated projects and things like that for like some smaller budget stuff that creatively, you know, they're very happy with. But they've talked to me about like dealing with that creative frustration as well, because these people do like sacrifice a lot of time and take a lot of pride in their work. And it's like, you know, at the end of the day, yes, the paycheck's there, but at the same time, it's an art form for them. You know what I mean? Like they still creatively want to be able to share that gift that they have with everybody. And it's just, it just sucks all around. Like, there's no better way to put it. Yeah. Like when these studios just like, yeah, we know you worked hard on this, but nobody's ever going to see it. Like that's,
there's a ton of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears, time away from your family, long days that go into these projects, and to put everything you have into it and then just never, you can't talk about it. They literally delete the film and it's never going to be seen. And it's got to be frustrating. And being a creative myself and stuff, I can just feel like that's just so frustrating. Now, if they didn't think the movie was good or something else, like we don't know exactly what's spurring this. Is, you know, Batgirl, the creatives behind it felt like they did something strong. Warner Brothers felt like it wasn't any good. Or hearing from creatives that the ACME, Coyote versus ACME movie is actually good. But they're wanting, like, we just don't, I would, like you said, I want to know what is coming to make these decisions and why we're seeing it more, or if it has happened a lot more than we're aware of and it's just now coming out, because studios are having a harder time of keeping secrets and keeping things in the books. We used to have a lot more surprises when films come out, and projects come out, but there's leakers everywhere for things.
Yeah, and they've done a better job about that recently, more so with like NDAs and things that are like a lot more stringent, a lot more like strict about being caught releasing those types of things. So you don't hear as much about that necessarily, or some people are very good about staying anonymous that release those things that wind up not getting caught. But like, I'd be curious to see how many people, because of NDAs, can't really talk about it, but are sitting there like maybe watching this. They're like, "Yep, I could name you 5 projects I've worked on, offhand that I did that never would have seen the light of day, even though we put a lot of time into it." It's a fickle business sometimes.
Yeah, because knowing, does that NDA still continue over here if it's shelved and deleted? Are they still not allowed to talk about it even though it technically doesn't exist anymore?
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting to see how this finally plays out, because it's not painting Warner Brothers in a great way, and I just hope there's a way for them to get that goodwill and rebound, because for a while there it seemed like when you talked about Warner Brothers there was a solid consistency with what they were putting out and what they were doing, but now it's getting a little more mixed.
Yeah, it's a long time beloved studio that has brought us so much, so much incredible things over the year, and it's kind of sad to see it kind of like on a steady decline of quality due to, I don't know if it's mismanagement or if it's what all's going on there. Like I said, we can't speak to the everyday workings of the company, but like what's going on there that's causing these types of things to happen that we're being made aware of, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. One that's kind of had a resurgence lately is the Predator series. So we had Prey a few years ago, which kind of took it back to its roots, to Native Americans, which you had a more grounded. But that it was really solid, really well done. So now we've got Prey 2 is in the works, but they've also announced another Predator film called Badlands, which is supposedly taking place in the future with another female lead, which Prey had a female lead as well. Katie Sackhoff, I've seen through her name out there, like, hey, I want to do it. So, she spent a lot of time lately in the Mandalorian universe and bringing those in Star Wars, really, because she voiced the character in the animated series and brought her to life in live action. So we know she can do action. If you know anything about her and what she's done with her career, get her in Predator.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I think she would do a good job with it too. And Predator's been one, like you said, that like Prey was really good. I was genuinely surprised at how good it was, because like it was super popular in the 80s, and those films were incredible, but how does it translate now? Can they tell a good story now? And I thought they did a good job with Prey. So the fact that they're doing Prey 2 and this Badlands film, like it's pretty exciting. Like I'm curious to see what kind of stories they tell, because like you said, they've gone back, now they're going forward. So there's a lot of different types of cool stories they could tell with that creature. So it's pretty exciting for sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So having that coming out, that's going to be a lot of fun. One thing that got me excited is to hear that Sophie Turner and Kit Harrington are getting together for the first time since Game of Thrones, really, which Game of Thrones is one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time. The last season obviously was what it was, but it was such a strong show for me that it still holds weight, like overall, despite the ending and how everybody feels about it. But they're coming together to do a project called The Dreadful, which is a gothic horror film, which I'm very excited about, because I think both of those characters, like Game of Thrones is notoriously like a dark, serious, show that was, incredibly popular. And now they're translating that from like a medieval film to a gothic horror film. I think has got a lot of exciting possibilities. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them together again. We don't know a whole lot of details. We don't know who they're playing, if they have any, if they're, going against each other, if they're love interest, or if they're brother sister. Like, we don't have any details on it, but it's going to be great to see them together again, because he said the last time we saw them was in Game of Thrones. They haven't had a project together since then. So to see them back together is probably going to be a lot of fun. Like, you're going to have a lot of comparisons to their characters in Game of Thrones, depending on how they do it. Hopefully they don't try to make them look too Jon Snow and everything, but yeah, we'll see. But it sounds interesting, and I'm looking forward to checking that out when it finally released. No real release date or anything else, just them coming back together.
Yeah, it's exciting, because it was such an iconic show that those people are always going to be identified with those characters, and it's exciting to see like what new project and and how that does, and if you can, get that out of your head that there's Sansa Stark and Jon Snow, right? So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what comes out of it. Obviously, I'm a big horror fan, so you throw them in that type of situation, I'm definitely excited to check it out for sure.
Yep.
So another thing we talked about in previous episodes, so you can go back in the archives and check those out, is the next Jurassic Park film, Jurassic World film. The film is getting ready to start shooting relatively soon, because like we mentioned before, they're hot-shotting it, but it's already hit its first bump in the road, I guess. Like the director, David Leitch, is leaving the film over creative differences, because it seems like the studio is, for lack of a better term, hell-bent on, shooting this film as is written and not really getting a lot of creative freedom, which it's kind of hard to find a director that wants to do that and doesn't want to at least put their stamp on it. So now it throws into flux a little bit about this film and who's going to get attached to it to just shoot the film and get it out, right? So, like, what did you think about that?
They're trying to fast track it. They're already saying that the script is still being worked on, and they want to shoot it this year to get it out next year. Like, I just hope they're not rushing and hurting the quality. That they get someone who, if there's something bad about the script, that they can make the change and not being forced to keep things that just don't work. So it's still got me mixed up in the air, because I've enjoyed the Jurassic World series. I've enjoyed the Jurassic Park. Some are definitely vastly better than the others, sure. But this one just concerns me with how they're rushing it.
No, for sure. And when you hear anything about fast tracking a film, it's an automatic red flag, right? So it's just an automatic, like, oh God, what's happening? Like, is this going to be worth my time? Is the trailer going to be, is the trailer going to have all the best parts of the film? The film's not going to wind up being any good. We don't know, right? But you slap Jurassic Park on something, it's going to make a ton of money either way. But creatively speaking, the fact that it's already hitting road bumps is definitely something that's concerning.
Especially when you're fast tracking a 200 million plus action special effects extravaganza type movie. Yeah. Those movies normally aren't one to fast track, because it takes a lot to get those made. So I hope it turns out good, but there's some worry to be had there.
Yeah, CGI teams are going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, because that's what we've already heard about crunch and everything else with visual effects companies and stuff. It doesn't sound like they're going to be giving them a whole lot of time to get those shots done, because you got to have stuff filmed and have a script done so they know what they're trying to create before. I mean, they get a script and they can start working on some of the stuff, but the script, as far as we know, is not complete as of yet. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Hopefully it's good.
Shoot it now. We got to go.
Lastly, we had news that we have another team up again with Christian Bale and Maggie Gyllenhaal. They're teaming up for her Frankenstein film. So, of course, they were last together that I can remember in the Christopher Nolan Batman films, and when she took over for Katie Holmes' character. So we had those together. So he's apparently playing Frankenstein, but that I talked to you a little about it earlier, like, what does that mean? Is he Frankenstein's monster, or is he Dr. Frankenstein, the creator? Because we don't know a whole lot about the story yet. There's some information saying it's tied to kind of the Bride of Frankenstein lore and everything. So is there that could potentially be a love story between like the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster? But like, it kind of left me with questions like, which one is he playing? It probably makes more sense because he's talking about shaving his head and getting prepared for the role, that he's getting stuff ready for the prosthetics and stuff needed, but they didn't say if it's the monster or if it's a doctor.
And Christian Bale's notorious for like dramatically altering his physical appearance for his roles anyway. So I'm kind of excited to see, like, to your point, it does lead me to believe he's playing the monster at this point, but just to be, because I think he's got like the facial structure to be the monster and everything like that, I think anyway, but it'll be fun to see that when it comes out. You know, Maggie Gyllenhaal directing and, you know, him being a part of the film it's going to be fun, right? Christian Bale does amazing work, and
he puts his all into everything he does. He's one of those like Daniel Day-Lewis that just, he's even kind of dangerous at times. You know what he did with The Machinist and how his body has fluctuated over the years, that he puts his all into every film that he does.
Right, and it's amazing to see the art that comes out of it, and I'm excited to see the film for sure, because, you know, we've spoken ad nauseum about it on the podcast already, but I love those old school monster horror type films, and the fact that he's being attached to this now is very promising and exciting for me for sure.
Yeah, I guess you never really pictured that he would come in to do anything with comics with Batman, and now you've got him coming into a monster movie, so it's definitely interesting to get his take on more than likely playing Frankenstein's monster and how he does that and what kind of different take. Because if you're getting him for his acting, so there's going to be some depth to the monster if he is playing that.
Yeah, and that's exciting for sure.
Yep.
So we'll have more on that as we get more information for sure.
Yep.
But now I want to move into it's 2024. TV is finally coming back. I'm so excited that TV is coming back because, we love film, but we equally love TV just as much as we do film. So the fact that stuff is already coming out, I think it's time that we can start talking about, what's coming up in TV, what's already started to drop, what's coming up soon. So I think it's a good time now that we kind of dive into all of the stuff that's ahead on the horizon for TV in 2024. I'm very excited about that. Yep. So, with stuff that we've already started covering, like Masters of the Air, we're going to talk a little bit in a little bit about Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that series, and how we felt about it. We've also talked about Masters of the Universe. That series just dropped this past week on Netflix. Haven't
had a chance to check that out yet.
But. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that too because it's Kevin Smith attached to it, and we love Kevin Smith and the stuff that he works on. That's exciting. That's out on Netflix now.
Yeah, and the first series that he did, so this is a sequel series to the one that, Kevin Smith already did with He-Man, which it was fun. And as we mentioned, Mark Hamill doing the voice of anything will get us there to watch.
Oh, yeah, and the fact that he's Skeletor is absolutely perfect because it's kind of a slight variation of his take on the Joker, and you know me, you know how I feel about Mark Hamill as the Joker, is my favorite iteration of the Joker. So that's a lot of fun.
That's still a highlight. Back in 2019, we went to San Diego Comic-Con, and we got to go into Hall H, and Mark Hamill was there for the Dark Crystal Netflix continuation, and we got to hear the Joker voice in person. Mark, and it's just goosebumps.
Goosebumps still thinking about
anything with Mark Hamill voicing a character, especially, the fun of him doing Skeletor is just
it's perfect, great. Right? So, So some of the other series that have been coming out already, we've had Echo that we've reviewed here. You've got the Ted series on Peacock. I know we haven't really talked about that, but the popular Ted movies, they've got a season out on Peacock, I believe now. It's got a full season of that.
Prequel series to the movies when Ted was, I think, when they first met Ted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that one's definitely not for the kids.
Not for the kids.
Not for the kids at all. And I know some people that have watched it that say it's hilarious and equally as funny as the movies, and kind of definitely a good transition from the films to the TV show. So I'm excited to check that one out eventually as well. But all the episodes are on Peacock now that you can watch. I know you were excited about Halo.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where they go. The first season was kind of mixed. Second season, it's gotten good reviews so far, so it seems like they may have corrected some of the problems that the fans of the games had with the first season. So I haven't had a chance to check that one out either yet, but I'll be diving into that soon to see how they've handled bringing Halo back for another year, because it was in the works for a while before we finally got that series, and like I said, very mixed first season. So hopefully the second season is good as we've been hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's out on Paramount Plus if you'd like to check that out. And then another series that's out is Griselda from Netflix. I believe that was one you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, it's seeing Sofia Vergara, which, if I butchered her name, doing a very serious role playing a drug crime lord. I've heard very good things about her in it and the show in general. So that'll be a different one to check out if you're into those drug crime boss type of shows.
Absolutely. I wonder if it's like a Narcos type.
It kind of looks like it from the trailers. Yeah.
It's definitely one to check out. But those are some of the ones that have come out already. But now that we're getting to the post Super Bowl network TV stuff coming back, there's a lot of stuff to get excited about that's coming up for sure.
Ton of shows. I mean, so you've got some returning, some new. One of the big ones that kind of kicks off pretty soon on February 21st, we have Star Wars: A Bad Batch final season coming up. The animated series for Star Wars have been kind of reigning supreme. We know that we said the sequel series for the films got kind of rough reviews. So did the Solo film. Everybody pretty much loved Rogue One. But the animated series from the Clone Wars all throughout have been really good. And so the Bad Batch is, kind of wrapping up its story that it was telling, and I'm curious to see how that ends.
Yeah, that's one I've really enjoyed as well. To your point, the animated series have been a lot of fun, and it's like it's taken a spinoff, and it's gotten two like really quality seasons, and the fact that it's wrapping up its story finally, it's kind of sad, but like I'm excited to see how that group all ends up. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'll be on Disney Plus when that finally releases on February 21st. Also on the same day on Apple TV Plus, we have Consolation. So that stars Naomi Rapace. Again, I butcher names. She's a fantastic actress. Has done a lot of stuff. So she's in this sci-fi space drama that's coming to Apple TV Plus, and it looks really exciting. Give me space, and I'm going to be there. I'm a sucker for anything space related when it comes to that. And it looks like a very dramatic, almost a lot of tension type of film or series. And I'm really curious to see how they handle that, because Apple TV they've been knocking out of the park. Like, I think it was season 4 of For All Mankind, which was, that alternate history space program. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love that show. Ted Lasso is one of our favorite series, kind of all time. Like,
absolutely.
So brilliant. Incredible. You have Monarch. Like, Apple TV has been really nailing the series they put out. So I've got high hopes that this one is going to be good too.
And for you get a lot of bang for your buck on Apple for sure, because it's one of the least expensive ones. Mm-hmm. It's one of the least expensive streaming services, but you're getting a lot of high quality stuff. There's a lot of fluff on there too, but as far as like when they nail it, they really nail it, because there's some really, really, really strong stuff that comes out of that property. I know one series I wanted to highlight that's coming out the next day. It's the 22nd, is Avatar: The Last Airbender series coming out on Netflix. I'm super excited. I know a lot of my friends are super excited. Shout out to my friend Izzy, who's a big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We've been kind of talking back and forth watching the animated series to get ready for that. We've touched on it before, but that's going to be a lot of fun to come out on Netflix on the 22nd. So that's a big one. One of the things I wanted to highlight about that really quick, the series itself, they're pouring a lot of money into it. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but each episode is costing upwards of about $15 million or more to make, which is insane, because they're putting in a ton of time and money into the show. So I've got a lot of high hopes for it being as good as I'm expecting it to be.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it with my girls. They've both watched The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender, so to dive into the live action one with them, because of course when Avatar: The Last Airbender first came out, it's a little bit older now for when our generation watched it for the first time, and now to be able to experience the live action version with my kids is probably going to be a lot of fun to check that. Absolutely. It looks like they've done a good job with it, and I hope that's true when we finally see it, and not too long now.
Absolutely. That's going to be a ton of fun for sure.
Yeah, so after that, on February 25th, we have The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. So this is another continuation, another spinoff of The Walking Dead. This is picking back up with Rick and Michonne, who, if you watch The Walking Dead, they left before the series ended. I have not finished the final season yet. I love the series. It started to... I don't know if it was just over the saturation of zombies or what it was. I just never finished the final season. So I feel before I jump back into that, even though it's taking place in another time, era, or location from where the series looked to be ending, I still feel like I need to finish the main series before I watch any of these spinoffs, because you had the Negan spinoff, you had the Daryl Dixon spinoff. You've got quite a lot of spinoffs. I haven't watched any of them yet because I just don't feel like I want to start them until I finish the original series.
Sure, and two of the main characters from that series were Rick and Michonne, right? So Rick, spoiler if you haven't watched The Walking Dead ever, where have you been the last 15 years? But Rick kind of had an unceremonious just disappearance from the show. He left, and it was left up in the air whether he survived or not. Well, now obviously we see that he has, and this kind of picks up from where he left, I'm assuming, where he left off on the show and where he went and what happened to him, and I guess how he and Michonne find their way back to each other. And I'm excited because I love both those actors. I love both those characters. I'm at least willing to give it a shot. I'm in the same boat as you, though. I haven't finished I think I'm a season and a half left of the show, so I've got a lot of work to catch up for that. But that might be one that I wait until all the episodes come out for it to watch it as well. But it's definitely one on my list that I have to check out for sure because of how much I do love and cherish those characters that, to your point, like after a certain point in the series, and there's different crux points for everybody that's watched it that I've talked about. It could have been from the time where spoilers, they kill Glenn to, the introduction of Negan that turned a lot of people off. Maybe.
Yeah, I think Negan was definitely a big turning point for the series and how it was structured, how the story flowed, and everything else. Like, it changed the series permanently.
Sure, and I kind of left in the middle of the whole Whispers, Whispers saga, which in the comic books themselves are amazing. It's an amazing story. Like, I know how the story ends in the comics, so I'm curious to see how they actually ended the series as well. But to pick up on this one, I'm also excited to see where they go with it for sure.
And on February 27th, we have what's probably one of our most anticipated shows of the year.
Absolutely.
Is Shogun on. It's going to be on FX and Hulu. It's set in the 1600s Japan, very dramatic samurai series, and there's already some previews that have come out giving it really high praise, and I cannot wait to check this out. Like, and for the gamers, we had Ghost of Tsushima that came out. That was a fantastic game that really brought you into that time period, that world. We're getting, a film or a series from that, so that's kind of, even having played that and loved that story, to get more stuff now set in that time period and done in a dramatic way. Shogun is really high on my list for this year.
Yeah, for sure. And, as we're both gamers as well, Ghost of Tsushima, to your point, it's one of my 5 favorite video games ever. Just the cinematography of the game, the playability of the game, the story that it told was absolutely epic, beautiful, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, and just a really beautifully well-told story about that time frame. And the fact that we're getting like a Shogun series as well, like it's not connected to that in any way, but it's a similar style story that they're telling in FX. And FX over the years, in my opinion, is one of the best, if not the best, cable original TV show networks like ever, because I mean they've given us Sons of Anarchy, The Shield,
Fargo?
I think so, and just so many other like absolutely incredible shows over the years, and this is like the next big one for them, and I'm very excited to check that out for sure, because that's comes out the day after my birthday, obviously, and I'm very excited for that to check out. I know I wanted to get a cheap plug in there, can't help it, but it's definitely one that I'm super excited to check out, that I'll be checking out weekly as episodes drop for sure.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait. And more likely we're going to be talking about it on the show here. So if you're mixed on it, or you're not sure about it, we should be talking about it. So we hope you tune in and hear what we have to feel about it. But I have a feeling it's going to be a really good series, and I cannot wait to see it.
For sure. Yep. So another series that's coming out is the Knuckles series on Paramount Plus. They dropped a trailer for that this week. Idris Elba's back as the voice of Knuckles. He's executive producing the show. I think it's going to be a 6-episode limited series on Paramount Plus.
Yes.
So that's exciting. Those films were surprisingly better than I thought they were going to be.
It started off so rough because we got the original trailer with Sonic trying to make him look too realistic, and fans revolted, and they changed him to look a little more cartoonish. And we hadn't had that many good video game adaptations, so there was mixed. And when it came out, it surprised everybody.
Yeah, and then it's just kind of set in that same space with this character. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's definitely one all the family can kind of get together and watch as well. So that's another one we wanted to highlight that's coming out.
And you got Idris Elba, who's returning and executive producing. You've got a lot of the cast. It looks like a few people are missing. Can't expect them for a series to get everybody back, but it doesn't look like they've replaced any characters to do this series. So it should be a lot of fun.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, a couple others we wanted to touch on. So, Manhunt is coming out on Apple TV Plus. So, for those history buffs and those people so this is based off of the book about the 12-day manhunt for John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. So, Apple TV is putting this on. Looks to be a dramatic, retelling of this big pivotal time. They're also jumping into Benjamin Franklin with Michael Douglas playing Benjamin Franklin, which will have that in April on Apple TV Plus. So it's good. There's a trailer out there that you can see. It's interesting to see Michael Douglas as Benjamin Franklin, but it's looks like they're taking very serious. Like HBO had done the John Adams series, which is really good, several years ago. So it's interesting to see how they tell this story with Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, it's just hard to. I haven't seen the trailer for it yet, but it's hard to imagine Michael Douglas as Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. So I'm just putting those two together in my head. It's wild. But to your point, like Apple TV Plus, it's probably going to be really solid.
Yeah. So also coming in April is the Fallout video game series, which has been running for many years. It's very popular. It's curious to see how they're going to do that in live action because it is kind of. There's a bit of an over-the-topness with it, with the kind of these creatures you're fighting, the big armored mech suits. You have, Walton Goggins is playing a character that is very deformed face, no nose. It's very interesting to see how they handle this series. That's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it tells a pretty deep story, a lot of lore to it and stuff, but a lot of stuff is done a little bit humorous, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So it's curious to see how they handle this video game series as a TV series.
Yeah, and then those are, to your point, those games are very popular. I love the games as well. Mm-hmm. And those are going to come with a lot of very strong opinions just because you take something like that and try to adapt it. So it's going to be polarizing one way or the other. So it's either, in my opinion, it's either going to be really good or it's going to be an absolute train wreck. And I'm kind of here for either scenario.
And we're going to hear about it either way.
Oh yeah, like we're gonna talk about it one way or another, right? So it's definitely one to keep an eye on for sure, especially if you're like us and nerdy gamers that love those types of games. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of series that we don't have dates for. That there's a ton of stuff to look at, but we just don't know when we're going to see them.
Yeah, because a lot of these are just starting to production on again. Been shooting for a while, but don't have like actual release dates. You got to assume some of them probably summer, some of them probably fall. One I'm really looking forward to is Dune Prophecy. So it's like a prequel series based on, the Dune films and taking place kind of before the events of the film. It's going to be carried on Max as well. That's going to be a ton of fun. Another one I'm really looking forward to is House of the Dragon Season 2, like we already mentioned. Love Game of Thrones. House of Dragon Season 1 was fantastic as well. Very violent, intense, like TV shows. And the fact that it's getting a Season 2 and it's coming out eventually, I'm very excited about that. I know one you're excited about is Season 3 of The Bear.
Yeah. So they're actually, I think, just starting filming at the end of this month now, but they're already kind of saying ballpark. They're looking to release it in June. But The Bear, if you haven't seen it, such a great show. Set in the culinary world. Very dramatic, very adult type of show, but it's so well acted. It's a great series to check out. I'm really looking forward to Season 3. Mm-hmm. Another one, because we are big geeks and stuff, so we have Star Wars The Acolyte that is said to come out this summer. Don't have a specific window for it past summer, but that sounds like a very interesting show. We're supposed to be getting more Jedi and different characters, and it's kind of a different story that we've seen them tell so far in the Star Wars universe.
For sure. And then obviously the Skeleton Crew is the other major Star Wars show, starring Jude Law, which I'm very excited to have him finally make his appearance. I believe it was originally supposed to come out sometime around the beginning of this year, but it's kind of been pushed a little bit later in the year that they haven't given us an exact date for. I'm hoping that comes out eventually soon.
With us seeing The Acolyte in the summer, more than likely that probably pushes Skeleton Crew to winter or late fall, so they're just not on top of each other.
Yeah, give it a little time to get viewership for both, right? So that's a lot of fun to look forward to. I know one show that you and I both really like a lot is Umbrella Academy. It's got their final season coming out this year, Season 4, which I think at this point I think they've kind of gone to enough of the well for that to get to the point where they're wrapping that up finally.
It's the right time for it to end.
Yeah, so Season 4 going out on hopefully a big note. That'll be out on Netflix at some point. One that I know personally is one of my favorite cartoon shows as a kid was X-Men the Animated Series, and it's modern day version of that is going to be called X-Men 97, which is, from my understanding, going to be shot in a similar style animation wise.
I think it's CG, but it's going to be emulating and mimicking the style of the original animated series and kind of taking place right after where the original 90s X-Men animated series ended.
I'm really tempted to sing that song because I love the intro music for that. It is iconic. It is so good. If you know the song, you're welcome for it getting stuck back in your head, where it will undoubtedly live rent-free for the next day or so.
And we're going to have a new generation who's going to, because we've kind of heard some of the X-Men, the film themes and stuff played throughout the MCU now as they're starting to hint, but this is like iconic theme song that will be stuck in my kids' heads once I force them to watch this.
I get a cheesy grin when I think of that scene from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness when Patrick Stewart shows up and they have that song very subtly playing in the background of it. It brings a smile to my face. So I'm pretty excited for that one for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Penguin series. So this is a continuation from the Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman movie. You got Colin Farrell as a Penguin who he disappeared in that makeup with the voice, with the makeup. Like, if you knew it was him, you could look at the eyes and stuff and you could potentially see. But if you didn't know he was in the film, because I had a few people tell me, like, I didn't realize that was Colin Farrell. So they're giving the Penguin a spinoff series, and I think it just finished wrapping. So we'll probably see that later this year, but we don't have an exact window for that. But I think that's going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun too, because I think they've given some kind of teaser for it already, I believe, even though it's like still currently filming. So it appears to be more of like a gangster, like Sopranos style, potentially TV show, maybe not as vulgar as The Sopranos was, but kind of in that same like theme style of the mob boss Penguin is, and the type, and having a story around that, which is a lot of fun. Colin Farrell's great, so to your point, if you didn't know it was him, you wouldn't. He's completely unrecognizable as the Penguin, so that's really cool. I'm excited for that one for sure.
Yeah, and this and the Batman kind of took place, so it's now going to be known as the what do they call it? The Eververse or something like that. So it's the stories outside of the main new DC universe that they're creating. And so along with that, we have Creature Commandos coming this year too. So it's an animated property, but it's the first property of James Gunn's new DC that, if they're voicing a character in the animated shows, they're going to play him in live action too. So Creature Commandos kind of kicks out. We know with film-wise, Superman Legacy is going to kick off the films. This kind of kicks off the TV series for the new DC universe. And they're kind of still waiting with bated breath to see how they do it. James Gunn did fantastic coming into Marvel and handling Guardians of the Galaxy. So let's see how he can handle, and of course, he did Peacemaker.
Yeah.
I want to say Peacekeeper instead of Peacemaker every time I refer to that show. I don't know why. But season 2 of that's coming, but he did a great job with that too. But now that he has full control over the DC universe, it's going to be really interesting to see where DC goes from here.
Yeah, there's a lot of continuity that hopefully he'll bring to kind of make it all feel connected and tell high quality stories. At the end of the day, that's what we all want, right?
Yep.
One very polarizing TV show that's coming back for season 2 is the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So that was very polarizing when it came out on Prime Video 2 years ago, and it's getting a second season. It was one of those extremely high budget TV shows that when it came out, there were a lot of people upset with it, but it seems like Prime is pushing forward with it. I was personally kind of iffy on the series, but I wound up enjoying a good lot of it. There's some that I didn't really care for about it, but I'm still curious. It's Lord of the Rings, right? Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, and I'll give it a chance to see where they continue on with that story from season 1.
It's just so hard to try to match the magic that Peter Jackson did with the original 3 Lord of the Rings films. We know there was issues with The Hobbit, and on most of that you can't put on him, studio involvement, other issues. But the original 3 Lord of the Rings films that he did are magical. Absolutely. And so now they're trying to take these other stories that not exactly exist within what Tolkien had created. So yeah, there's some controversy. There's some stuff that I didn't care for. They did, like you said, for budget-wise, it was gorgeous to look at.
Visually, it was stunning.
I'm hoping the story gets just a little better in this season 2 and gives us something more of the quality of what we had from Peter Jackson's films.
And it felt like towards the end of the season, it got a little better at like feeling more like a fluid story than it did kind of throughout the first few episodes or whatever. But I'm willing to give it a chance for sure.
We do have a couple more Marvel properties coming this year. So we got the Marvel Zombies. So it's kind of more continuation of what we got in What If. Of course, the comic Marvel Zombies are extremely popular. So now we're getting more Marvel Zombies, which I'm all for. It should be fun and interesting to see what kind of stories and stuff they decide to do with giving zombies its own series outside of what they did with What If. And then the other kind of big series is from WandaVision. You got the spinoff of Agatha, which is now called the Darkhold Diaries. It's changed names about 3 times now.
At least.
But Agatha is getting her own spinoff. You've got Aubrey Plaza is part of the cast now. It looks like it could be really fun and interesting, but, WandaVision was definitely something different from anything that Marvel has done so far. Where is Agatha going to fit in between the rest of the MCU, and WandaVision going to keep the similar kind of craziness that WandaVision has, or is it going to have its own completely different tone from outside what happened there?
Yeah, it's going to dive into more of the magic side and the mystic arts type side of, of Marvel, and kind of dive a little bit more into that, which is a lot of fun. To be fair, this has been shot for a while now. I think they finished filming it in end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I know it went into 2023.
Yeah, and we're not going to get it until later in the year, probably around Halloween, like you said, around that time. So curious to see what that show looks like when it finally does come out, because they've got a few in the can that they need to either shelve or put out at this point. It feels like with their restructuring, I don't know if they're going to lose some of that, but I'm excited for that show too, because I really enjoyed the Agatha character and how they introduced her in the show, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm excited for that one.
Yep. Kind of round out here, we have The Boys Season 4 is coming this summer, looking around June. I think that's when the other seasons have come out. Of course, if you know nothing about The Boys, it is not for the faint of heart. There's nothing off limits. It is not for kids. They will do anything and everything. Like, it will catch you off guard, but it's fantastically done. Like, it is dark, it's dramatic, it's funny, and it'll just... what just happened type of...
It is absolutely wild. In my opinion, it is like the consummate adult superhero TV show. It's gory, it's graphic, it's sexual in nature, language for days, and in my opinion, it's my favorite thing Carl Urban has ever done, by far. And he's done a lot of fun stuff, but like The Boys is an incredible TV show. It's had its spinoff Gen V, which we both really enjoyed as well. But season 4, you're introducing more people coming to it. I believe the actor who played Negan in The Walking Dead, I'm blanking on his name.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan is coming in for this season. Like it's gonna be big. It's gonna be epic, and it's gonna have a lot of people talking when it finally does drop this year for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one to check out.
And then another one on Netflix to kind of put an exclamation point on it is the sequel to Squid Games, right? So Squid Games was incredibly popular, show on Netflix when it first came out. I believe in end of 2001, beginning of 2002, somewhere around that time. During COVID times, that it was like one of, if not the top show on Netflix streaming. And it's finally getting a sequel season, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. I've seen Squid Games; it's a lot of fun. I enjoy the show very much, and
they actually just did a reality competition series based on Squid Game, which was weird thinking about. All right, you just watch a show that is about people losing their lives playing this game to try to win money. Well, let's do a reality show. But it ended up being fun. It had its flaws and issues, but it was pretty fun to do. But yeah, now we're getting back into like how more crazy, over the top. How many surprises are we going to get with Squid Game Season 2?
Absolutely.
It wildly popular. Took over everything. Like really everybody was talking about it. Yeah, and I think Season 2 is going to be equally as popular.
For sure. Absolutely.
So if there was something that you are looking forward to this year that we didn't touch on, leave a comment on YouTube, come to our Discord, let us know. We couldn't touch on everything. There's a ton of stuff coming out this year, and this is mainly summer or spring to summer. We haven't, had a lot of preview for fall and winter stuff. You know, as we mentioned, there's a few things that will probably fall into that gap, but there's a lot to look forward to in the spring and the summer.
Absolutely. Let us know, like, are there any things we didn't touch on that you're looking forward to? Come talk about it. Come comment on all of our socials and let us know what you're looking forward to. And we'd love to have that conversation with you as well.
Yep. Continuing our reviews on TV. So we're on episode 4 now of Masters of the Air.
Yep.
So last episode, we got a big action, almost entire episode was in the air. Action sequences. This episode kind of took us back to the character development. We got almost the entire episode was just character development, and it kind of took those interesting threads we talked about last season and opened up even more.
Yeah, and I agree. And it was nice after like the big action series to kind of step back, catch your breath, and see what's happening in the fallout from that and moving forward. There are some presumed in this episode major character deaths, I'm assuming.
A lot of mysteries with some characters at the end of this episode.
Yeah, it's not as concrete. Like you get a little bit more of a like if I want to call it a complaint, I don't really have it because we don't know the whole story yet, right? So it's kind of like in a passing like, oh, this character that we've spent so much time with didn't make it in this last run that they go on, and we're like, well, what the heck, man? Like, what's going on? Why do we not know yet? Yeah. And it's one of those it's one of those frustrating things as you watch as it's dropping weekly episodes that it leaves you with a lot of questions, and I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I'd say so far of the 4 episodes we've watched so far, I would say it's, in my opinion, probably the weakest.
It was a little weaker. It's definitely more about the character. I took it more as with this episode is that they wanted you to see, last episode we got all the air and we saw exactly what was going on with all those guys. This episode we were seeing how everything unfolded on the ground. So everybody who's doing the navigation and running command and doing everything and working on the planes and doing it the ground, you're seeing how it would be for them. They didn't have the communication like we have nowadays to be able to talk to the pilots and everything else. So you're finding out information as they would. You're as confused and mystified and lost kind of as they are because all they know is, well, these planes didn't come back. That's kind of all they know. So I kind of took it that we're supposed to be seeing it from their perspective. And I do agree that it was a little bit weaker. I mean, you got a lot of development. You got a lot of different threads and stories going on and a lot of mystery left open. But that's kind of how I took that interpretation is that you're getting as much information as they probably would have on the ground.
Sure. And I can, and in a way I can appreciate that. I just mean so far from the overall story they're telling, right? Yeah, we are getting more character development. It does have, honestly, what might be my favorite moment of the series so far in the episode, and that's the episode on the train, where they're being asked to basically follow along and present your papers, do as I do kind of thing, and the girl immediately leaves. And then the guy comes and asks them, like, it'll make sense when you see it, but he eventually gets like so frustrated that he just takes off running in the train. And it's so funny for me because you're like, what are you doing? You just want to reach out and grab him by the back of his shirt and be like, stop. You're going to get us all killed. Stop it.
They definitely was those typical situations like, all right, we're going on a big mission. We have to follow protocol completely as we say, oh, wait, I've got to go. And everything unfolds while they go. Well, it's very, that was one. I enjoyed it, but it kind of took me out of it a little bit because that's the atypical, the one who's leading everything is going to step away for a second and then everything hits the fan. Like that's done so much, so often. It was kind of telegraphed that was going to happen. Like she's giving them all these details on what to do, what not to do, and then she leaves.
And it just, as someone who loves absurd things and just like loving to break tension that way, it was a good way to break kind of the tension of the episode for me. It's like I said, it didn't completely take me out of it, but I appreciated it just in a vacuum based on what was being done at that time. It was just so much fun. It was fun.
But in the end, this episode was really about character development. We were seeing how the war has played out. We're seeing like how many missions it takes for them to be able to get home, how many missions they've run so far. We're also getting, those who are behind enemy lines and how they're surviving. We're getting what the soldiers do in between missions and trying to like somewhat lead a normal life while they're out fighting World War II. And it was slower. It probably not going to be the highlight of the series at all. It had, just some stuff that you were just okay with. But I think it continues and sets up a lot of mystery and some interesting details that we're going to see in these last few episodes. But there is a point that, we're telling something historical, but what is the overall point that this series is trying to tell? What story are we trying to tell? Like, it's about the bomber groups, but whose story is it in the end? That's kind of where we got from this episode. Is it all their story, or do we really have a main character because we do have a narration that's being done by a certain character and a lot of stuff being told by their viewpoint, but we're also getting a lot of stuff outside of their viewpoint now. Sure. So, like, whose story exactly is it? Is it supposed to be all of theirs? Or because we do seem to be centrally focused on one or two main guys, even though we're supposed to be telling the entire story of this group, and now that dynamic is kind of shifted with where this episode left off.
Absolutely. So there's definitely a lot more questions and answers, but that's part of the journey, right? So it's been a really good series so far. I'm excited to see how the last 5. I think we got 5 episodes left now. So I think we're through 4 of 9.
Yeah, I think so.
We're about at the halfway point now. So you can kind of see it's gonna lead to this big epic crescendo probably. And, it's definitely on its way there for sure. So yep. I'm definitely still invested for the rest of the series for sure.
Yep. So if you want to check out Masters of the Air, you can find the episodes dropping weekly on Apple TV+.
Yep. And we'll continue to talk about it through its entirety as well in here. So stick around for that. Now, one other series we wanted to highlight this week was Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is a TV adaptation of... It's set in the same vein of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. 2 strangers come together as, husband and wife that are spies, and they go on various missions, and it really plays into the family dynamic. It stars Donald Glover as John Smith, and it stars Maya Erskine, I think is how she says her last name, as Jane Smith. And I don't know about you, man, but I really enjoyed like the tone of this series because it kind of runs an emotional gamut for me because it's got comedy, it's got action, it's got violence, it's got depth. I personally found it to be very fun and charming in a lot of ways. As I think it's a very smart comedy. Like it's got a lot of what I call smart humor and not necessarily like lowbrow humor. But I don't know. How did you feel about it?
It was one that was kind of mixed going into, because when you hear anything that's being kind of remade or redone, or they're doing something in the universe, because we had the movie, which was, a fun over-the-top action film with both of them. Then you had a little bit of romance and things in it, but you didn't know how they were going to approach it with here. Were they just going to copy the exact formula and way, and you're just completely rebooting? But I was pleasantly surprised that they kind of did their own thing. They did not start it out the same way. They built up to these characters and given us the relationship. I thought it was very, very well done. Like it gave you something not completely different, but it gave you a feeling that it is its own thing outside of the movie. Like it does give some ties into the movie. Kind of nods to the movie in the end, but it really did its own thing. Donald Glover has been fantastic in just about everything he's ever done.
So good.
He is such a good actor and such great. He's got that charm, that charisma, but he's got that. He plays this character so well. And I really love the dynamic. Like when you first meet the two, you're not exactly sure how they're going to match up and mix up, because they're definitely kind of polarizing between each other. They both have vastly different views on things that you learn and how they are, but they really mesh so well as the series went on. You really believe that they could fall for each other, that they're working, well together as spies, that it really worked things well. But I was kind of surprised at how violent it did get at times. Like, it's not over the top with the violence at times, but like when it shows you the violence, it shows you the violence.
Yeah, it's impactful when it's needed, right? So like I said, that's what I appreciate about the show, is that it jumps from like, they're just a married couple talking on a bed or talking in a kitchen and just trying to grow that interpersonal relationship that they have with each other, and then it jumps into this absolutely absurd mission that they go on, whether it's high risk or low risk or whatever that they touch on in the show, and it's a lot of fun, like, to see how they play like multiple dynamics simultaneously, right? Because there is humor. I was genuinely surprised at the guest stars that weren't advertised that wanted making appearances, because there's people that just pop up randomly and you're like, what the heck is this person doing here? Like, some of the cameos, and I won't spoil it. I want you to go check it out. But like, there's some really cool cameos in this that are like playing, they're like not themselves, but they're playing like various characters in the series. I personally think the therapist made me crack up. But
yeah, the one that I really enjoyed that episode was they had to go capture a guy and keep him safe and deliver him to the company. And it's played by a very well-known actor who we love and has been in so many big, huge stuff. But there's so much silly, fun things. Like they're treating him almost like a child in ways, and he plays it like a child. And that was a really fun episode with him to get to see a goofy, sillier side of him. And but yeah, his star-studded cameos that were a lot of fun. I think talking about the therapist, the one issue I kind of had with the show in the end was passage of time in the show was kind of hard to tell. Like each episode is evolving their relationship, these characters, where they're at with the company, where they're at with each other, but there really isn't any indicators of time. The only one we really got was the therapist episode because they're recalling previous missions, but none of those missions are missions that we had in the show. They're brand new missions to kind of show stuff off. That was the only passage of time we got. So we've got all this development that's happened with their relationship and with their job, but you're kind of missing how much time has passed because there's a pretty big evolution, especially with the relationship that happens, that you're just kind of, how far along are we in their story? Has it been a few weeks? Has it been a few months? Has it been a year? Like how long have we been on this journey with them this season?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that because in an 8 episode season that you don't know if you're getting a season 1 or season 2, not to spoil the ending of the series, but it does leave it open as to whether or not it's kind of a did they or didn't they make it out kind of cliffhanger,
Big
if you want to call it like that, like to where like if they don't come back with another season, like you could presume they didn't make it or whatever they decide to do with it ultimately. But like there's so many different fun elements as well that they play up, like some themes that they play. Like one of the two characters is overly ambitious, the other's not as much, and they kind of play off how that affects their interpersonal relationship and where they want to go in life and their careers. And there's other different family dynamics that are played in from their past lives that kind of gets intertwined in their, and it's a lot of fun stories that they tell throughout the show that are really well done in a way that makes sense, in my opinion, that doesn't feel like, oh, we're just going here for the sake of going here. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it gives you an idea of who these people are outside of being just, cold-blooded spies, right? So they have, real human emotions and real human life experiences and how that affects how they perform at their jobs. Like they do a lot of fun, like kind of tossing that back and forth.
Yeah, that's probably one of the aspects I like the most is that the relationship kind of felt real. That's kind of where the time passage got me because you're invested in their growth in their relationship and not kind of knowing, because sometimes it might be as simple as 3 months later or something else is on screen. You don't know, but you're investing in their relationship feels real. You've got these little conversations that you've similar, you're not spies killing people and everything else in real life, but you can have with your spouse that you feel like that's kind of a real relationship item that has popped up. And because that's the only issue I kind of had with it overall was just that knowledge of passage of time, because you're getting invested in their story, you're getting invested in their relationship, you're getting invested in what happens to them, but it's like we don't know how long we've been invested with it. And outside that, it was very enjoyable, and it caught me off guard because I really wasn't expecting it, because it's a reboot, remake, continuation. It's using the same premise as the movie. You don't know how those are going to turn out, and this was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, it all wraps up pretty nicely. And like you said, it seems like it's one of those things that they kind of, I don't want to say forsake for the sense of plot development at that point, but. Yeah, I agree, because you want to see maybe just a little bit more of how they got as close as they got, because it seems like they do kind of make a jump from, okay, are they going to actually get together? Then they get together, and then, how that evolves over the course of the next several episodes, and, conflicts and things like that they run into both at work and at home. So, if you get a chance, check it out on Prime Video, form your own opinion. I definitely recommend watching this, especially if you're a fan of Donald Glover, like we both are. Like, he was brilliant in Community. I love Atlanta that he was in, and this is just another thing that he's just insanely talented, and I'm excited to see what he does next for sure.
Yep. So the entire first season is available now on Prime Video. Yep. So coming up next week, it's lighter, but we actually have a couple big things coming out film-wise, and of course, it's premiere week. So TV-wise, we have a lot of your broadcast staple shows coming back. All your, all 300 FBI series and 57 NCIS shows. I kid. I've watched some of them. I haven't got into those shows much, but you do have Ghost and American Idol and most of your big shows. This is premiere week. This is kicking off. So from here through, depending on how they're going to run these series, because normally when we had the fall, you would have a fall break that would bring you into the winter season. Now are we going to get a break, or are they just going to run all the episodes to be done by summer so they can get back into the normal, fall premiere and not running kind of over schedule? But we have a ton of series coming out this week.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to wind up finding is they're probably more truncated seasons. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be shorter story arcs that hopefully pack more of a punch week by week. Because to your point, like, there's got to be at some point where it resets back to what we consider normal TV, like TV tropes, where you're done in May, you get the summer off, and you come back in September, like that kind of thing. Yep. So I'm curious to see if if we get like very truncated seasons of these, or maybe there's less weeks where if you follow like some of these series that are on like 20, 22 episode seasons that take breaks here, take breaks there, and then maybe don't have new episodes for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I know like shows like NCIS are notorious for that, where they're like have 2 or 3 episodes and they're off for a week or two. Maybe we don't get that because it's as truncated as it is, and they pack a little bit more. It may not be 20 episodes, but it could be like 14 or 15 episodes.
Yeah, because talking about those breaks, most shows have a fall cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. So when they're taking that winter break for the holidays, because, TV's not going to be watched as much, they have a cliffhanger.
For sure.
Are they still sticking with that? Because, most of these scripts and things had to be ready to shoot at, probably done before the strike happened. How much did they modify these series to fit this new spring, summer instead of fall through summer TV?
Right, and this is where we'll kind of feel that immediate impact of the fallout from the writers and the actors strikes that happened last year, and just kind of seeing how these networks handle these shows. But you got to figure at some point there's got to be a hard cutoff to get it back on a normal schedule, so that by the time fall does roll around, we're back on like how we've been operating for all these years. So it's gonna be interesting to see how those series type shake out for sure.
Yeah. In theaters this week, though, we have 2, I would say, pretty decent-sized movies. You have Madam Web, which is done by Sony, in the Marvel character universe. Of course, you've got Spider-Woman, you've got Madam Web, you've got a lot of these characters. I don't know how much Marvel had involvement with this series. It's definitely a different one outside of it. It's kind of like Venom. It's connected, but it's disconnected. So it's curious to see how they handle having all of these characters without Spider-Man and his gallery of villains, because it looks like we have, just sticking to Madam Web and Spider-Woman and all theirs. It's going to be an interesting film to check out that we will have a review for next week. And then we have Bob Marley's One Love, which is another big biopic that looks really good. Looks like they've done a solid job of telling his story, which we hope is true. And we look forward to checking that one out as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Bob Marley film because, Bob Marley, I'm a musician. He was an incredible songwriter, had some all-time classic songs, absolutely influential in, reggae culture, Jamaican culture, reggae music, and just overall music in general as well. Mm-hmm. Like, he's an absolute legend and a cultural icon. So it's exciting to see that film. I know, like, as often as we go to the movies, we've been seeing the trailer for this ad nauseum for months now. And I'm excited that we're finally getting the film to check it out as well. I don't know if we'll necessarily review it here, but definitely plan on watching that. To your point, we are going to talk about Madam Web next week and, its ties and stories to potential fringe MCU verse type stuff. And it does have 2 very well-known and popular actresses at the moment starring in it, in Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweeney, who are both, kind of it actresses at the moment right now. And So it's got some name value to it, and you slap a Marvel property associated with it on top of it. Curious to see how well it does at the box office, if it's a good story or not, and we definitely plan on bringing that next week for sure. I'm excited to talk about it. So coming out on digital this week, we have The Iron Claw, which is a movie that Brad and I both went and saw in theaters, and we both really enjoyed. Didn't get a chance to talk about it too much on the podcast, but it follows the tragic tale of the Von Erich wrestling family. It's a beautifully told story starring Jeremy Allen White, who's popular from The Bear right now. Zac Efron is both in the film. It's a wonderful story. You don't need to be a wrestling fan to enjoy this film, I don't think, but if you want to check it out, it is on demand on February 13th.
It's a great movie. Not a Valentine's movie, so unless you're alone and you want to cry and be depressed, but yeah, it's definitely a movie worth watching, but it is a very deep, serious, dramatic film that we definitely highly recommend checking out. It was so good, but not for those Valentine's plans.
And the other film that comes out this week is Miller's Girl. It's on demand on February 16th as well, so keep an eye out for that. But that's another film that I know we haven't had a chance to check out yet, but it's one we definitely plan to check out now that's coming out.
Very short theatrical run.
Yeah, we didn't get enough time to see it, but that's definitely one on our list to check out as well.
Yep. Yeah, so coming up next week, we have Masters of the Air Episode 5 and the film review of Madam Web. So excited to see both of those.
Yep, we'll have that for you next week right here. Thank you so much once again for joining us on another episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. Check us out everywhere you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a comment. If you're on, any of the audio platforms, if you could leave us a review, give us 5 stars, give us whatever you feel is generous. Tell us how you feel about the show. It really helps boost the profile of the podcast, and we can't thank you enough for that. Also, don't forget to check us out on any social media platform. We're literally everywhere, but if you want to know specifically where to find us, go to www.willbringthepopcorn.com, which has links to all of our socials. We also drop trailers during the week that we find interesting as well. And let us know. And also, if you see any social media posts of ours this week, the Super Bowl is, wrapped up by the time this episode drops. What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial? Let us know. Tell us how you felt about it. You're a Chiefs fan. Are you happy? You sad? If you're a Niners fan, are you happy? You're sad? You tired of seeing Taylor Swift? Let us know. Just, give us your thoughts on anything. We'd love to chat it up with you. So don't forget, check us out on Discord as well and any of our social medias. And we can't thank you enough for joining us for another episode. We will see you next week.